Ed Sheeran, the story behind the music. Every generation has its voice, a sound that connects millions, that transcends borders, and that captures the deepest of human emotions. For this generation, that voice is Ed Sheeran. From a small town in England to the largest stadiums on earth, Ed's rise wasn't powered by privilege or hype, but by persistence, heartbreak, and songs that feel like they were written for each of us. This is the story of Edward Christopher Sheeran, the boy with a guitar who became a global icon. This is not the story of a manufactured pop star, nor the rise of someone who had doors opened by fortune or fame. This is the story of a boy from Halifax, England, who packed his guitar, slept on couches, played to empty pubs, and refused to quit until the whole world sang his songs back to him. His songs are the background to first dances, heartbreaks, graduations, and quiet nights alone. He is the soft whisper of love and the roaring anthem of celebration. But his journey was anything but easy. Every generation has its voice. Some artists create songs, but a rare few create soundtracks to our lives. For millions around the world, Ed Sheeran is that voice. The city was vast, overwhelming, and often unforgiving. But Ed wasn't here for comfort. He was here for opportunity. In 2007, at just 16 years old, Ed Sheeran packed up his dreams and moved to London. He didn't have a record deal. He didn't have money. What he had was a guitar, a backpack, and an unshakable belief that music was his calling. Chapter 2: The Dreamer in London. And so, with big dreams and little money, Ed Sheeran packed his bags, his guitar, and his endless determination. At just 16 years old, he left the safety of his hometown behind and set off for London, chasing a dream that seemed impossible. By his teenage years, he carried his guitar everywhere. He filled notebooks with lyrics, scribbled chords on margins, and played whenever he could. His teachers, classmates, and even his parents couldn't have predicted it then, but this boy from Framlingham was preparing to take on the world. It wasn't easy. Ed had a stutter, which made him shy and often teased at school. But music gave him a way to communicate when words failed him. With a guitar in his hands, he found his voice. But what truly sparked the fire was when he discovered singer-songwriter Damien Rice. At 11 years old, Ed saw Rice perform live, and something clicked. He went home, picked up his guitar, and began writing his own songs. At a small open mic night, Ed's performance caught the attention of actor and musician Jamie Foxx. Impressed, Foxx invited Ed to stay at his house and record in his studio. For the first time, Ed Sheeran had a taste of professional production and validation from someone who believed in him. In 2010, Ed scraped together enough money to fly to Los Angeles. It was a risk. He had no connections, no plan, but fate had something extraordinary in store. That someone finally came in the form of the internet. Fans began sharing clips of Ed online. Word spread about this red-haired singer-songwriter who could hold a room with nothing but a guitar and a loop pedal. By 2009, Ed was playing over 300 shows a year. Imagine that. Nearly every night, sometimes 2 shows a day. His mantra was simple: play, play until someone listens. Yet every no only fueled his drive. He wrote more songs, played more shows, and sharpened his craft. But behind the determination was constant rejection. Record labels turned him down again and again. Industry insiders told him his look didn't fit the mold, that he didn't have what it took to be a mainstream star. Ed also made connections. He collaborated with other rising artists, rapped verses in small hip-hop collectives, and proved he wasn't afraid to experiment. But behind the clever visuals was a simple truth. People connected with the songs. They felt real. And in a pop landscape dominated by high-production beats, Ed Sheeran's acoustic honesty was refreshing. Lego Houses became one of his biggest early hits, thanks in part to a clever music video starring Rupert Grint, best known as Ron Weasley from Harry Potter. The video blurred reality and fiction, playing with the idea of a superfan obsessed with Ed Sheeran. It was funny, it was clever, and it got millions of views. The album was a declaration of who Ed Sheeran was: vulnerable, honest and unashamed of simplicity. Songs like Lego House, Drunk, and Give Me Love showcased his ability to blend storytelling with melody. His lyrics weren't about fame or fortune. They were about love, pain, hope, and the little details of everyday life. With the label's support, Ed released his first full studio album, titled simply Plus. It arrived in September 2011, and that miracle got the attention of Atlantic Records. They saw not just a hit song, but a songwriter with limitless potential. Ed signed his first major record deal, and the dream he had chased for years was finally within reach. By June 2011, the A-Team had stormed the UK charts, debuting at number 3. For an unsigned artist who had spent nights sleeping on trains, it was a miracle moment. Against all odds, this haunting acoustic track began to spread like wildfire online. Fans shared it. Radio stations picked it up. And suddenly, Ed Sheeran was no longer invisible. The album's lead single, Sing, produced by Pharrell Williams, was funky, upbeat, and unlike anything fans had heard from him before. It was proof that Ed could compete with mainstream pop on its own turf and win. Ed's second studio album, titled X, Multiply, marked a turning point. This wasn't just the intimate acoustic ballads of his early years. This was Ed experimenting, pushing boundaries, and proving that he wasn't limited to one sound. The answer came in 2014, and it was louder, bolder, and bigger than anyone expected. By 2013, Ed Sheeran was no longer just a promising singer-songwriter. He was quickly becoming a household name. The success of the A-Team and his debut album Plus had given him credibility. Touring with Taylor Swift had given him exposure. Now the question was, could he do it again? Chapter 4. Global Recognition. By the end of 2012, Ed Sheeran had gone from playing pubs to performing at the Grammy Awards alongside Elton John. For a boy who had once been told he didn't look the part, the transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. For Ed, this was validation. Not only was he achieving success on his own terms, but some of the biggest names in the world were recognizing his talent. With this record, Ed didn't just release music. He redefined what global pop success could look like. In 2017, Ed Sheeran returned with an album that would change everything. Its title was simple, Divide, pronounced Divide. But the impact it would have was anything but simple. Chapter 5. Divide and Conquer. The Multiply era had proven Ed Sheeran's place in the industry, but his next chapter would take him to heights no one could have imagined. His next album wouldn't just be successful, it would be historic. By the end of 2015, Ed wasn't just a UK sensation. He was one of the biggest artists in the world. And yet, what made him different was his refusal to fit the mold. No flashy image, no carefully crafted persona. Just authenticity and the power of song. As his fame grew, so did his list of collaborators. He wrote songs for One Direction, Justin Bieber, and even co-wrote the haunting ballad I See Fire for The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. His pen was as valuable as his voice, and everyone wanted a piece of Ed Sheeran's magic. His tours grew larger and larger. From small clubs to arenas to stadiums, Ed Sheeran's rise felt unstoppable. And yet, through it all, he remained grounded. No matter the size of the crowd, he performed as if he was still in that tiny London pub, playing to 10 people. Critics marveled not only at the commercial success, but at Ed's ability to connect. His concerts felt personal, even in stadiums. Fans left feeling like they'd been part of something intimate, something shared between friends. And remember, Juan, this was a man who walked on stage alone. No band, no dancers. Just Ed, his guitar, and a loop pedal. To hold an audience of 80,000 people with nothing but your presence, that is something few in history have ever achieved. The Divide World Tour was historic. Beginning in March 2017, it spanned over 2 years, covering 260 shows across 5 continents. By the time it ended in 2019, it had grossed more than $775 million, making it the highest-grossing concert tour of all time. With these collaborations, Perfect became unstoppable, dominating radio, streaming, and hearts all at once. Ed's willingness to collaborate elevated the track even further. A duet version with Beyoncé gave it new life, while another featuring Andrea Bocelli blended pop and opera in a way few had dared before. Couples everywhere chose it for their weddings, their anniversaries, their private moments. It became one of the most universally cherished songs of the decade. And then came Perfect, a ballad so tender, so timeless, it quickly joined the ranks of the greatest love songs ever written. He often spoke about how parenthood reshaped his songwriting. Love was no longer abstract or distant. It was present in every laugh, every sleepless night, every moment holding his child. Songs from his later albums reflect this shift. More mature, more reflective, deeply personal. Fatherhood soon followed. Ed and Cherry welcomed their first daughter, Lyra Antarctica, in 2020, and later their second child in 2022. For Ed, becoming a father changed everything. Unlike the flashing lights of fame, their relationship was private, rooted in shared history and simplicity. In 2019, Ed and Cherry married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by family and close friends. It was a stark contrast to the spectacle of his public life and exactly what he wanted. Cherry and Ed had known each other since childhood, growing up in the same town of Framlingham. While Ed was conquering the world, Cherry had built her own successful career in the corporate world. In 2015, they reconnected and their friendship turned into love. It was during this period that Ed turned to the people who grounded him most, his childhood friends, his family, and one person in particular, Cherry Seaborn. The constant touring, interviews, and public attention began to take a toll. Ed admitted that at times the pressure was overwhelming. The life of a global superstar looked glamorous from the outside, but in reality it meant long stretches away from home, exhaustion, and a loss of privacy. Fame had given him everything he dreamed of, but it also came with shadows. The lead single, Bad Habits, surprised fans. With its pulsing electronic beat and darker aesthetic, it was unlike the acoustic ballads people expected. Dressed in vampire-inspired makeup for the music video, Ed proved once again he wasn't afraid to experiment. Unlike his earlier records, Equals was infused with a different energy. Written during a time of personal transformation, marriage, fatherhood, and the global pandemic, the album reflected growth, love, and the fragility of life. In 2021, he returned with a new album, Equals. In the years following the record-breaking Divide tour, Ed Sheeran stepped back from the spotlight. He had conquered the charts, filled stadiums, and earned enough accolades to last a lifetime. But for Ed, the next chapter wasn't about bigger numbers. It was about deeper meaning. Chapter 7, Equals and Beyond. This transformation, from dreamer to superstar to husband and father, added a new depth to his music. Songs once about ambition and heartbreak now carried the weight of legacy, belonging, and a desire to create something meaningful not just for fans, but for his children. In these quieter moments, Ed Sheeran found what mattered most. Not chart positions, not record-breaking tours, but love, family, and the people who had been there from the beginning. In an age of heavy production and digital perfection, Ed showed that a man with a guitar and a loop pedal could still rule the charts. Countless younger artists cite Ed as an influence. From Shawn Mendes to Louis Capaldi, new generations of singer-songwriters have followed his blueprint. Honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to tell real stories through music. By the 2000s and 20s, Ed Sheeran had achieved what few artists ever could. He wasn't just topping charts, he was shaping the very sound of popular music. His songs weren't confined to one genre, one audience, or one era. They had become universal, woven into the soundtrack of everyday life. Chapter 8, Legacy and Cultural Impact. Equals wasn't just another album in Ed Sheeran's catalog. It was a reflection of where he had come from and where he was going. An artist, yes, a superstar, undoubtedly, but also a husband, a father, and a man determined to write songs that would last beyond the charts. For fans, this balance made him even more relatable. Despite being one of the most famous musicians alive, Ed Sheeran was still the same down-to-earth songwriter who cared more about crafting songs than chasing fame. As he toured and promoted equals, Ed remained grounded in his personal life. He often spoke about balancing his time between music and raising his children, admitting that family had become the center of his world. Ed Sheeran's journey is more than the story of a musician. It is the story of persistence, of believing in yourself when no one else does. From the boy who strummed his guitar in a quiet Suffolk town, to the man who now fills the largest stadiums in the world, his path has been anything but ordinary. Ed Sheeran is more than a star. He is a voice of a generation, and his story is still being written. His legacy is not only in the records he's broken, but in the millions of lives he's touched. And through it all, Ed has stayed true to the simplest of ideas, that music should come from the heart. From the boy writing songs in a notebook in Suffolk, to the man filling the biggest stadiums in the world, Ed Sheeran has proven that authenticity resonates louder than anything else. Ed Sheeran's songs are not just hits, they're life moments, crystallized in melody. His music has crossed cultures and languages, uniting people in stadiums and bedrooms alike. Perfect became the soundtrack to millions of weddings. Thinking Out Loud was played at graduations and anniversaries. Shape of You dominated clubs from London to Lagos. And maybe that's why fans feel so connected to him. His songs don't just tell his story, they tell ours. Ed Sheeran's voice will echo for decades to come. His songs will be sung at weddings, in stadiums, in lonely bedrooms, and joyful celebrations. He has given us not just music, but memories. But above all, his story reminds us of something simple. Greatness doesn't always come from privilege, or perfection, or power. Sometimes it comes from a boy with a guitar who just won't quit. Today, Ed Sheeran is not just one of the most successful musicians of his time. He is a symbol of what can happen when passion meets persistence. His music is a bridge between folk and pop, between heartbreak and joy, between a quiet dreamer and the hearts of millions. He faced rejection. He faced nights of loneliness, sleeping on train seats and couches. He was told he didn't look the part, that he wasn't built for pop stardom. But instead of giving up, he wrote, he played, he sang, he refused to stop. And as the lights dim, one thing becomes clear. Ed Sheeran's story is still being written. The chapters ahead are unknown, but one truth remains. The boy from Framlingham has become a legend, and his music will live forever.